Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Welcome to Canada Today's Youth Edition on the Muslim Network. I'm your host, Mohammed Maxwell Hassan. Yes, my middle name is Maxwell. And we're going to be diving into some very, very interesting subjects. Now, for this is the first time here with the Youth Edition, just to give you a little taste of what this is all about, why have this show in particular? I mean, you see a lot of times, especially in North America, it's hard to spotlight a lot of Muslim youth, all the amazing things that they're doing in the community. And so that's what this show is all about. It's not just about talking the talk. We want to walk the walk as well, identifying and accurately, framing the problems and walking away with solutions. And that's just what we're aiming to do today. And for today's topic, it's all about fitness, staying active during quarantine. I know you can imagine now with coronavirus kicking in, COVID-19, a lot of gyms are shut down or, a lot of them are out of use. So what do we do? How do we stay active? A lot of things are tough for a lot of folks. What's our relationship with our bodies? How do we make do with all what we have? And especially as Muslims, what does Islam teach us about how we, stay fit? And so that's our conversation today. I'm joined by two amazing guests here today. With us today is Yusuf Hilmi. He's a Mississauga native, a recent kinesiology graduate and varsity soccer player from the University of Toronto. During his time at U of T, he was the recipient of the OUA Rookie of the Year Award and the OUA Community Service Award. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. He currently plays soccer at the semi-professional level in League One Ontario, for North Mississauga SC. He also coaches competitive youth soccer on his downtime. And Yusuf co-founded the MAA. What's that, you might ask? What's MAA? The Muslim Athletic Association. Trying to be the gold standard for North America. And although through this vehicle, he strives to empower youth and build strong Islamic identities through sport. MashaAllah, man, welcome aboard, Yusuf Hilmi. SubhanAllah. And so with us also today, we have Sister Maqbooli. And so she currently is studying to become a doctor of pharmacy at the University of Alberta. She hails from Alberta. This summer, she's training for a half marathon and sitting as a GFC representative for her faculty. Her main sport of choice was cross-country running, where she competed at a provincial level. And for a number of years, Sister Maqbooli also competed in basketball, badminton, boxing, and track. With her boxing background, you definitely don't want her to get angry. She became a certified CrossFit trainer and started on her own organization called Fit for Humanity with the motto, improve your health while improving someone's life. All the proceeds went to supplying medical aid internationally and shedding light on humanitarian crises. And so, Jazakallah khairan, Sister Maqbooli. Wonderful to have you aboard as well. And so just to kind of start off the conversation for all our viewers here, for those watching, I always like to dive into people's stories. How did you get involved with fitness? How did you get involved with sports? Let's go with ladies first. Sister Maqbooli, how did you kind of grow into sports? How did sports enter your life?
So I actually started sports at a really young age. My dad was really athletic, so I always tagged along. And also my brothers were into sports, so of course I need to compete with them as well. But I started my first race in grade 3, my first cross-country race. And I remember it was in Ramadan, and I ended up fainting at the finish line. After that, I was like, I love this. And I continued on. I joined every sport that I could find: badminton, boxing, basketball, cross-country running, track, like you had said. After that, I had graduated high school. I got into CrossFit. I became a trainer, started my own organization and trained people. And then from there on, I've just been training for runs on my own time.
MashaAllah, great, wonderful. So how about you, Yusuf? How did you get, and look at that MAA right there on your logo. Talk to me. What's your story about sports? Like, let's go with the origin story. How did you get involved with sports in the first place?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I actually grew up in a small town outside of Toronto called Innisfil. It's beside Barrie. And in Barrie, there's not much to do there. So you can kind of go two different streams. You can kind of go a bad route, or you can kind of keep yourself busy with different things. So that's what I did. My parents gave me a soccer ball, and we had a bunch of different sports, basketball stuff around the house. I was never like enrolled or registered in any team formally, but I used to go to the park a lot with that ball. It's just the easiest thing for me to take. And I'll just practice in the park. It's called Webster Park. I'd go there every day and just shoot around on the net and play around. And then it was actually, subhanAllah, a neighbor who was also training in the park, who happened to be a coach at the local club, saw me playing and thought I had potential. So he took me under his wing and started training with me and practicing with me. And then from that point, I kind of just ended up in the local club. I did well at the local club. I ended up in a better team here in the city, eventually getting recruited for a UFT, and then playing competitively at the varsity level at UFT. And then I just love sport. I learned so much, developed so much from sport, both in my personal and professional life, that I co-founded the MAA to, inshallah, give the same opportunity and experience to youth and other Muslims.
MashaAllah, man. So you were plucked out. You were scouted out, and they were like, you know what, Yusuf, this guy is awesome. So for both of you, like, do you know, a lot of people have a lot of role models, especially in the sports world. Out of curiosity, like, did you have any sports role models? Like, any athletes that you looked up to? Anyone that you wanted to be when you were growing up? So let's go with Sister Mabuli first. What do you think?
So, of course, the first one that comes to my head is Ibtihaj, the fencing Olympian. She was kind of the first hijabi athlete that, got made it big time. So, of course, I looked up to her, Serena Williams. And at a smaller level, of course, my brothers, keeping the standard for me, and just my teammates and coaches like that.
Very cool. So was it their athletic performance that drew you in, or was it their like mindset? Like what kind of drew you into them? Like what made them role models for you?
For sure, their characteristics, persistency. I love that, they work through any barrier that they have, and they have one dream, they go for it, and they achieve it. SubhanAllah, once you put your mind to something, it doesn't matter how challenging, you can get there. So that's kind of the mindset that I like to keep with everything I do, is just don't look at all the speed bumps along the way, just keep pushing forward.
Look at that. Sky's the limit. MashaAllah. Life's a journey, not a destination. All right. So Yusuf, who was your, growing up, who were some of those like sports role models that you really look up to?
Yeah, one I'd have to say Cristiano Ronaldo at the beginning, just because, yeah, kind of such an icon at so many different levels, but just his work ethic and his work rate, I always gravitate towards that. Even to this day, he's still cited as one of the most fit all-around athletes. So kind of at a young age, just seeing his work rate, and not only that, but knowing his backstory, that he also came from a small town in Portugal, and he was kind of playing in the park and got scouted. And next thing you know, he's playing in England and Real Madrid at the top clubs, making 100 million plus euros a year. So that was kind of my motivation and my role model for a bit, playing soccer at a young age. Yeah.
MashaAllah, man, that's amazing. Yeah, who doesn't know Ronaldo, right? That's a household name. I mean, for me, if I was to share, one of the biggest athletes that I looked up to, who left this world too soon, was Kobe Bryant. That was my guy. He really basketball, like that Mamba mentality. That's what drew me personally to his game, the way he looked at the sport. He didn't just treat basketball as just a thing. He lived it, he breathed it, he ate it. That was his life. And I think that's a common trait that with all the people that you look at, you just look at some of the things that they do, and one of the common denominators is never giving up and having that determination to reach the end. So mashallah, that's good. Well, really appreciate you sharing that backstory for both of you. So just for viewers, kind of where they're coming from. Muslims in sports, they kind of draw inspiration, and you just move forward from there. So now for today's conversation, staying fit during quarantine, I'm sure a lot of viewers are looking now and saying, okay, we're stuck. I mean, here in Canada, at least, things are slowly starting to reopen. I think in the US as well, things are at a certain pace, things are reopening. But a lot of people aren't trusting. They're not really going out to the gym and just living life as it is. There's all these precautions. But before we dive into that, I wanted to ask both of you your observations in general, because we're going to be more specific within the Muslim community, specifically with the Muslim youth. What would you say are some of the observations that you've noticed about them? How do Muslim youth today look at fitness. So Sister Mabula, you want to take this and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. I mean, from a woman's perspective, I feel like there's a lot of barriers when it comes to wanting to work out or join sports. So although it's on the rise, it still has like those limitations that people are facing. And having spoken to a bunch of sisters this past while, I kind of boiled it down to a few things. And that's dress, confidence, finding your identity in a space where you are the only one, and also having like support systems. So, which with each of those, there's solutions. I don't know how deep you want me to go into it.
Well, by all means, like, just go for it. Like, I mean, so maybe could you maybe expand a little bit more? What do you mean by, for on the sister side, do you mean like they're not as confident? By dress, what do you mean by, like, could you unpack that just a bit more? So, yeah.
So of course we are seeing a lot of women push forward, of course. But having spoken to them, they have went through a lot of barriers to get where they are. And subhanAllah, I love seeing at a track meet, seeing another Muslim girl competing. But so for example, being the only one observing hijab or dressing a certain way creates some kind of confidence. I remember a confidence issue. So I remember growing up. At first, I felt a little bit embarrassed. People might be looking at me because in my jersey and my shorts, I also have leggings and long sleeve and a hijab on. But as I progressed, I felt, no, I'm the same as you guys. I can do the same things. I'm the same as any of my teammates. But now I've progressed in a way where it's like, okay, yeah, I am different and I accept my unique identity. But I can outwork anyone on the field, on the court. And that's where I gain my confidence, is not actually being the same, not striving to be the same, but being different and embracing your identity. SubhanAllah, it's a blessing to be able to, represent Islam and push forward in sports.
MashaAllah. Yusuf, before I get to you, I want to just expand this a bit more with the sister size fall. It seems to me that there's this perspective that's been thrown around, and in particular, it seems like perhaps a lot of our Muslim sisters, our Muslim sister youth, since you brought up the hijab, it's like they might look at the hijab as a way that's a hindrance. They might look at it as a way that I don't feel like I can, reach my full potential. They want to take this cloth and toss it in the wind, saying that I want to just be free and liberated, and that I can finally achieve what I want to achieve. And this is slowing me down. So, Sister Mabuli, as a sister, what do you make of that perspective? What do you make of that outlook where a sister might look at the hijab as a way of bringing them down in that capacity in the sports world?
I always like to think of it as it's not what's on your head, it's what's in your head. So a lot of times we look at hijab as a limitation, but what really is limiting us is ourselves in our mind. So for girls who may feel that way, it's going to be a journey. Of course, it's not easy. It's not easy to be different in a space like that. But find your confidence in yourself, and how you find your confidence, of course, is to put yourself in those situations where you can gain exposure, build those skills. You can't just build a skill by dreaming of it. You have to actually go out and do it. So find some girls who feel the same way, and build your network. But a funny story is, actually, I was speaking to a sister, Fatima. She's based in Calgary, and she's in martial arts. And so she had found it difficult to find the proper hijab that's not going to split when she's doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling. So she ended up finding capsters, so it's something a little bit tighter. And it actually became an advantage for her. So instead of, having someone elbow your hair, rip out your hair, pull it out, she had everything secure back. And after tournaments, she said girls were asking, hey, like, do you have an extra one of those? So it's, again,
there you go.
it's how you perceive it. And I found that as well when I did boxing. I had worn a cap, and it held everything in place. So, be proud of what you have, and that's my piece of advice.
MashaAllah, look at that. And I think the comment that really stuck and resonated was, it's not what's on your head, it's what's in your head. And MashaAllah, as a brother, I mean, Yusuf and I, we can only relate to a certain degree, but as a sister, MashaAllah, you just really drove that home, MashaAllah. So Yusuf, talk to me, man. What are some of your observations? What do you see in the Muslim world in terms of how they look at fitness and sports in general?
Yeah. Just Jazakallah, Sister Bully, for the insights. Just to piggyback off some of the stuff you said, my observations for, I'll touch on the woman shortly, is that my experience in soccer and other sports is that they do feel very restricted, and the confidence is low, and they feel like maybe they're out of place when it comes to participating in sport, especially at the higher levels where they kind of have to make a decision. Is this for me or is this not for me? And I'm seeing more so than not that from the get-go, they don't consider sport as a viable option long-term. And then when it does get a bit more competitive, they're opting out because now you're maybe mixing with a bit more males and the dress code a bit more enforced, et cetera, et cetera. So I like what you said, that it's not what's on your head, but it's in your head. There's always a way to overcome those barriers and those speed bumps. Going back to the brothers now, inshallah. My observation is that brothers in this community of Muslims, they love sports so much. They love basketball and they love soccer. And Pakistani brothers, they love, cricket. And we all have our sports that we love. And I feel like there's such a big passion in the Muslim community for sport. But the, I guess, image of sport is not seen as too serious, something that should be structured, something that's organized, something that you can actually pursue as a career, or, at least at the collegiate level like me. And that's a reflection of what we see in the community with the programs that are being offered. They're kind of operated by the uncles, and the standards are low. And that's sort of what we're trying to do at MAA, is try to up those standards and give people an opportunity that if they do want to pursue a more competitive pathway in sport, they can do so, because we have a lot of talent, we have a lot of drive, we have the means, alhamdulillah, we have the resources. All we need to do is put it all together and give their youth the opportunity to stay out of trouble, continue to build their bridges, not with only in the Muslim community, but also outside of it as well.
SubhanAllah, that's great. So now I'm curious. Let's unpack that a bit more. Let's see, where's the origin of why, let's say, some Muslim families, they don't look at sports as something. What are as a viable career option? What are the big three? What are the big three career options? You can help me fill in the blankets.
Medicine and law, maybe.
Doctor, engineer, and
law.
What would you?
Law.
Yeah. The big three. Jannat al-Firdaus. This is how. Now, when it comes to sport, you're talking about when someone says, Dad, I want to be a soccer player. Mom, I want to be a badminton player.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you can fill in the blank there. So why, I guess in your opinion, why is this not considered a real job or career? And what advice would you have for youth who want to pursue this? I mean, either one of you can take it.
I can take this one. I'll just touch on it briefly from my perspectives. I think that the generation, I'm second generation. I thought a lot of the younger people now are second generation, first generation Canadian. And at the time when our parents came, the notion of playing sport and just anything really extracurricular wasn't taken too seriously, or they don't really have an understanding of its benefits and what it really entails. So even at the collegiate level, it could help me get scholarships, it helped me get tutoring, it helped me get admission to this school. I got other perks in school that helped me with my professional life. So whether it's a career path or just taking it competitively and seeing as far as you can go, there's always benefit and merit to it. Even when you get out of school, employers prefer athletes over a non-athlete. They're competitive, they're goal-oriented, right? They have discipline, time management, et cetera, et cetera. So I think just that lack of connection between whatever career path they choose, whatever endeavor they choose to do in the future with sport and the benefits from sport, just misunderstood to our parents maybe. And that's why we're not reaping the benefits of sport at a competitive level for our youth.
I see. How about you, Sister Mabuli? Do you have any, again, from a sister's perspective, what do you make of this?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with him. They may be concerned a little bit with job security just because it is hard to get to that top level athlete. But to be competitive and to work out and take care of your health, it should be a given. You know, sometimes it's not. But for parents who are hesitant to let their kids join sports, I think about the skill transferability, like Yusuf was talking about. What are the skills that you gain from being on a team? So what are the skills that you gain from having to wake up at 6 a.m. and train before school and then have work? You build lots of time management, resilience. You know how to deal with people, all different kinds of people under pressure in heated situations. And of course, importantly, it builds your confidence. Another important aspect is Muslim health in the Muslim mental health in the community is kind of still, untraveled territory, but sport is like crazy important when it comes to that. For me, it's one of those coping techniques that I use, and it helps me get through school and life. Sometimes you just need to go for a run.
SubhanAllah, that's wonderful. What you just said reminded me of a quick story, if I can be afforded to share with you both, about how sports can translate into career opportunities, maybe not even, like it's transferable. I remember one professor, he was telling me once that he was going into a job interview, and the interviewer was asking the question, and the question was, what sports do you play? And he said squash. And then right then and there, the interviewer's like, yeah, thanks for your time. We don't need you. So he's like, well, wait a second. Like, what, just like that, why? You know what he found out later on? He said, because squash is like a one-person game. We need someone who works with a team. So already I can figure out that if your sport of preference is an individual-based sport, although maybe I'm sure you can do doubles, it's not a team-based thing, like, typically. But he's saying primarily we're looking for people who are more. So right then and there, I was like, you can question his recruiting tactics, but I think the point is clear that there is definitely, if you say I play pro soccer or I play, basketball or what have you, it does have connotations that carry through just beyond shooting a leather ball into a metal hoop or kicking a leather ball into a net.
Exactly.
Right? So there's so many other things. It's not like that, and that's great. Speaking of that, actually leads me to another point. Here's a pattern that I've noticed, and I'd love to hear both of your opinions as well when it comes to this. Is that when it comes to Muslim youth, maybe the reason why they work out isn't for internal reasons; it's more for external. And what I mean by that is, Yusuf, maybe you've heard of the phrase curls for the girls or weights for the dates and all that sort of chat. Look at that. See, they're smiling. Hey, I'm not talking like, I'm not pulling this from the sky. This is what they work out to look good for a potential spouse or, what have you. They want to look good. Instagram is full. You don't have to go look too far. So now, can you two comment on this? If it's a young Muslim man, a young Muslim lady, they want to work out to look good for someone else. What do you make of that? Is this something? I'll leave it at that. What do you make of that kind of perspective or outlook on why you should be fit?
I guess it depends on your intention. If you're working out for someone else, eventually that's going to fade, and then you're going to stop. So, all the power to you if you want to do that, go for it. But like I said, sometimes you need that extra motivation that's internal, and do it for other reasons like the mental health, your physical health, and then that's what kind of creates that pattern that you keep on doing, even though it hurts sometimes. Yeah. So an example is, I see patients sometimes that are on like 15 medications with a bunch of disorders, and I remember I asked my preceptor, I said, "Wow, I hope I never get to this point where I have so many medications." And his biggest piece of advice was stay healthy and take care of your physical and mental health. I feel like when you let go of those things, then you create problems that snowball. You get one disorder, which leads to another disorder. Medication leads to another medication. So it's again about mindset. If looking good is what drives you, go for it. But eventually, that's probably going to change. So you need to find something else. So
Interesting. One thing leads to it's a snowball effect. All right, Yusuf, what's your take on this?
I would say the intention is they know best their intention. I mean, if you're working out and you want to be an athlete for the sole reason to impress the opposite gender, and you're not having modesty and humility, then that's an issue. But there's nothing wrong with wanting a good, positive self-image of yourself and feeling good and having a nice body. There's absolutely nothing wrong in Islam. If you're going to the gym to have a good physique, that's nothing wrong in Islam. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his stomach never protruded his chest. These guys were all narrated. A lot of the Sahaba and a lot of the Anbiyat were narrated to be big, strong men. That's because they were physically adept. They were working hard and they did other forms of activity and exercise. So just prior to that, if you can set your intentions that you want to do this sport or this activity or lift weights for the sake of Allah, because Allah does love the strong believer, inshallah, Allah will give you more barakah in all your endeavors, and then you get the best of both worlds, inshallah.
Look at this guy tying in the hadith. What that's a home run right there, mashallah. Let me tell you, that's amazing because it goes to show like especially for Muslims that intention is the root of everything. Like if you're doing things for the wrong reasons, if your sole intention is to look good, that's like Sister Matbuli says, that it's not going to last long. You're going to find that you're going to constantly be looking for imperfections. You're going to be constantly looking for things, and it's like a hamster on a wheel. You just keep running and you're never going to get it. But mashallah, Yusuf, like if you look at Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, look at the companions, they didn't have biryani belly, right? Like they kept themselves in shape. Otherwise, how would the deen survive if they just kept
Right.
force feeding stuff? So then if you want, maybe this is a great I guess segue into talking a little bit about diet. Although if you stay tuned, we're going to be having a little bit of exercises for you. Don't worry, we're not going to be jumping around or anything like that, so you'll be fine. It's going to be a kind of a unique little exercise here that we have for you. But let's talk a little bit about diet, because I think that's another aspect that people don't consider when they're talking about getting healthy. They think about dragging themselves to the gym, getting their curls in, getting their deadlifts in, what have you. But they don't talk about the other side, which is the kitchen. So can either, what advice or what do you see people do? What do you see people do, and what do you think they need to do, or what's the healthy solution, or what can we make of this? So what are some observations that either of you have had?
I can let Yusuf speak to that just because he might have more experience being a college level athlete.
Yeah, for us, nutrition is key. I also took a course at U of T called Nutrition for High Performance, and we had weekly meetings with a nutritionist who would kind of look over our diet. How are you snacking? How are you taking your protein? How are you hydrating? How much water did you drink today? Tracking all that on an application, phone app. So diet is huge, not just for high performance athletes, but just for the everyday person. And I think an issue with the Muslim community, and you hear this a lot, like you mentioned, the biryani belly, right? This is something that's rooted in our culture, which I think is going against the sunnah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam never overate. He had 1/3 like water, food and air, right? So he ate in moderation. He didn't eat to bloat himself, right? And this is an issue we find because when you bloat yourself, you're fatigued after you eat. You don't want to exercise. You feel fatigued. You don't want to go for a walk after, right? And this discourages you from being physically active. Like Mabuli mentioned about prescription and mental health, it's all a negative cycle. Once you start eating too much and you start putting on weight, you start to feel down on yourself, sometimes depression, right? Sometimes lack of energy, right? Fatigue. So it all kind of goes in for a full circle.
SubhanAllah. So do you have anything to add? Sister Matbuli, I know you deferred it to Yusuf, but do you have anything left to add, or can we move on to another kind of?
No, I totally agree with what he had to say. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, fair enough. So here, let's talk a little bit about different body types. On the one hand, you might have people who, let's say they were a little bit heavier And on the other side of the scale is you have people who are much thinner, right? Smaller. I can just, from my own personal experience, I've always been on that end of the spectrum where it's like each of them have their own challenges. But like I'll tell you that for those who are thin out there, I'm just gonna speak to you that you can probably relate to the fact, how many times have you been invited to gatherings where they just keep telling you to keep like keep eating, eat, like eat, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure people, they're saying, that's that. So there's that side of the equation. On the other side, people who are, a bit heavier on the scale, they have their own sort of challenges. Can you speak to that, either of you? I mean, like, were either of you on one end of the scale or the other? What advice would you give to someone who's, let's say, on the heavier side versus on the lighter side? Is there any difference? What do you make of that in this regard when you're trying to stay fit or stay active during quarantine?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends what your goal is. Some sports or workouts you need to be bigger. Some you need to be smaller. For example, when you're running, it's nice to be light. So maybe you need to cut weight. But if you're lifting weights, a little bit of pounds doesn't do you negatively. You know what I mean? As long as you're in a healthy weight, I think that's what's really important.
Right. How about you?
Yeah, I'd say there's two categories. There's like a high level athlete. I guess you could say there's a recreational athlete and then the person who's sedentary, doesn't do much at all, right? I think to your point, Maxwell, I experienced this maybe 2 days ago. Like, I was invited over for food in a socially distant manner. And I kept having food poured on my plate. I'm full. Auntie, I'm full. Like, that's enough food. So I think there's something embedded in our culture that if you don't eat half the plate, it's considered rude, right? And disrespectful. If you don't finish the plate, it's considered rude and disrespectful. So even my mom, right? We started getting into my family, started changing their ways a little bit. Like, you're not being polite by eating the whole thing. You're just doing your body a disservice, and your body has rights over you. So to your point, Maxwell, you made a very good point about heavier set people and then people who are typically skinnier. I think it's important maybe to consult with a nutritionist and maybe a family physician, someone who's more educated than myself in the space, but to know what kind of body type you have, whether you're endomorph, mesomorph, and then see how you carry fat differently. Some people, they may appear very skinny, but they have internal layers of fat, and they're just carrying that fat. Maybe you experienced this growing up, Maxwell, but there's some kids, they just eat whatever they want. Yes, they have a high metabolism, but where are they carrying fat, and then how does that affect them growing up, right? Oh, look, I still have a six-pack, right? I don't know if you ever heard that, but people do carry fat internally in their organs, right, around their peripheries, right? So I think that's something that's worth consulting, is what kind of body type do you have? How should you maybe alter your diet accordingly? And then how can you work out accordingly suited to your body type? Those are good points, Maxwell.
Subhanallah, man, it's amazing. Yeah, there's a science to it. It's like, you can take the guesswork out of this and just simply go for, mashallah, we live in 2020. You got the internet at your disposal. You have tons of resources. This is wonderful. Like, and subhanallah, I want to share this one thing that I recently heard in a seminar. Like, where does energy come from? And a lot of times people say that energy comes from food, but that's not true, because you can even imagine just past Ramadan, after iftar, when you have a heavy set, and you stuff with yourself with food, are you really active afterwards? Yes or no? Like, not really, right? Like, when you're full, like we're talking Thanksgiving dinner, you just want to, who's going to get up and change the world there? On the other side, some people might say, well, you get energy from sleep. How many times have you slept 8 hours a day and you still felt tired, right? So that's not the energy. So that can't be the answer either. So what he was saying was that energy comes from motion. The more you move, the more you get energized. And he said, what's it called? Emotion comes from motion, right? So I remember that spot. So emotion comes from motion. The more you do, just move around and act, that's going to affect how you feel, subhanAllah. So that's a good point that you brought up. So in terms of how diet plays a big role in how we just go about managing our lives in that capacity. Good stuff. Now, let's see here. What else can we? Is there any other sort of before we move on to this other segment here, when it comes to these fun little rapid fire questions, is there any other kind of observations that you've noticed from the sister side, from the brother side, about Muslims that you feel is so you're like, it's so wrong. You need to we gotta really re-educate ourselves with this. Is there anything that really strikes you, either of you, for the Muslim youth in particular?
I think fear of taking that first step, especially when you start at an older age. I know I started really young, so it kind of was just part of my life to stay active and join sports. But I like to think of it as if I didn't have that background and I wanted to start right now, um, I would feel like maybe I would face stronger limitations. For example, am I going to fit into this space? But my advice for that kind of thing is find a support system and find people who are going to hold you accountable. Like the Muslim Athletic Association, that's a great example. It's just bringing people together, no matter what their fitness level. Keep each other accountable, motivate each other, inspire each other, build that confidence so that when you do build those things, then you can go into other spaces. So never be afraid. Find that one person. Maybe it's in your community, maybe it's in your family, maybe it's online even. Draw inspiration, motivate each other, and never be afraid to take that first step. Sometimes it's a leap, sometimes it's a tiptoe, but whatever you have to face, go forward with it.
MashaAllah, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, whether it's a leap or a jump or MashaAllah,
Yeah.
amazing. Yusuf, what about you, man? Oh, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, if you have a goal in mind and you're passionate about whatever type of sport or workout that you have, everything in the middle changes from roadblocks to hurdles. You just keep on, keep your form right, keep hurdling over those steps, and it's labor is not a chore if you're passionate about it. So
Look at that, just dropping gems from the ceiling. MashaAllah, Sister Mahmoudi. So how about you, Yusuf? What about you? Any last minute observations that you found about the community?
Yeah, last minute, I'd say there's two things that kind of play off each other. Is don't be afraid to assimilate in other environments. Like I find that Muslim families, like, yes, I understand completely. This is why we started the MAA, actually, is to give everybody a safe, comfortable place that they can relate to in terms of Islam and participate in sport, get involved in sport, whatever your fitness level is. But at the same time, too, you can't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, whether that's going to a club in your city, doing some research. What's the best opportunity for me if my son does or daughter does want to play a sport, right? So it's a matter of like, you can drop off your kid at the masjid and say, go play for an hour. Or you can say, hey, my kid actually has an interest in this sport. Let me see what other alternatives are there for him before I scratch that out completely. So I just say, don't be afraid to assimilate and see other programs around the Muslim community as well. Get out of your comfort zone. And then when you do have that goal, like Mabudi said, go for it and don't let anything stop you. There is no excuse for you to stop.
MashaAllah, so that's good, man. Like, so it's don't have that roadblock in mind. Awesome, good stuff, Yusuf. So now, let's see. So we have a few more minutes left, but I wanted to, the thing about this program or this show in particular is we don't want to just talk the talk. We want to walk the walk as well. We want to have food for thought, but we want to be able to, no pun intended about the walk the walk. Yeah, so just realize that with fitness. But the idea is that we want people who watch this to walk, to take something away from it. So before we go into, these two have a couple of exercises for us that you can do while sitting down on your seat. So wherever you are, whenever you're watching this, you don't even have to stand up. You can just do this while you're sitting down. But before we do that, I wanted to just share one thing. I don't know about you. I don't know about either of you, but when you're on the computer a lot, does your hand start to cramp up a bit? Like, I don't know if you notice your grip is getting a bit weaker. If you haven't noticed now, you'll notice now. When you're on the computer for so long, that's one thing. So what I found that I thought was relevant to this conversation, just hopping on here, is there's this grip handle thing that you can use, and the idea behind it is you can just hold on to it, right? I don't know if you can see it right here. You can just grab it and grip it and hold it. So the idea is you want to maximize this. You can even turn this into a game. See how long you can hold this for. You'd be surprised. It's easier said than done. And now you might be wondering, where can I get one of these things? I know now the economy isn't looking too tight, so you can actually get this from Dollarama. It's a decent quality. You'll get a lot of mileage out of this. I figured this would be something worthwhile I want to share with you all and go from there. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to both Yusuf and Makbuli, Sister Makbuli. You said you had some exercises that we can do from our seats. So what are some things that we can do while sitting down comfortably?
Yeah, I'll kick us off, Mabuli, with a brief warm up. So I'm gonna try to move my camera so you guys can get a glance. But basically, I'm sitting on a chair right now. It has wheels at the bottom. What you can start by doing is kind of sit at the edge of your chair, kick your feet up as if you're riding a bike. So you just ride a bike, and that's just a warm up. Get the heart rate up. Sound like I'm in a Bowflex commercial. You're just gonna and then you can. What I'm also gonna show you guys is some stretches you can do while you're sitting down. So you can just kind of do a hamstring stretch, right? Lift up the toe. There you go. Do both legs, probably about 12 to 15 seconds, both each leg. And then maybe about 30 seconds while you're cycling.
Very cool. Look at that. I mean, I never even think of that. That's neat. All right, Sister Maria, what do you have for while you're sitting down? What are some exercises that people can do?
Yeah, so I'll speak to a little bit of the upper body workouts. So you can use whatever kind of weights you have. I do have dumbbells, but you can use like laundry detergent, whatever has a handle. So for your shoulders, you can do the lateral raises, right? You can do one at a time, or you can do both arms at the same time, and then also forward. So come forward. Just hits different parts of your muscles. You can also do bicep curls sitting down. You're typing on your laptop, do bicep curls. And you can also do chest flies. So like this. You can, again, do both arms or just one. And I'll actually show you how I learned how to Olympic lift. So when I got into CrossFit, when I was cleaning the house, I always had a mop handy. So that's how I actually learned my lifts. So what you can do is attach weights on the end of it, like again, the laundry detergent. Just use some duct tape, be creative. But I'll show you an overhead press. So what you do is you want to get the bar on your clavicle, so the front of your shoulders, and drive your elbows up. It's a lot harder when it's light, but when you do have weight, it just kind of sits there. And then you're just going to press up. You want the full range of motion. And this is really going to hit a lot of muscles on the upper body. So your traps, your shoulders, your triceps, and your core. So keep your core tight and you can get a lot done. So.
Look at that. See, even while you're sitting down, people are saying, I don't have time to go outside. Man, you're sitting here, you can still be working. That's the idea, man. So, Paula, thank you both. I really appreciate it. Hope you took something away from that. I'm sure, pick whatever your favorite exercise is and, just keep doing it. The idea is like, whether it's the grip strength or whether it's, doing the bicycle or whether it's, overhead pressing your broomstick, either way, you can still get some mileage in and move. It's amazing. So we're almost out of time, but I would like to offer you both, an opportunity to give some last minute thoughts. What advice would you give to our Muslim youth here today to stay active, to take care of their health? What are some, if I was to say, what was the biggest takeaway that you have for them? What would it be? What is the last parting thoughts or parting words of wisdom that you have with regards to this topic?
I mean, I would say don't let fear override your faith. Don't let your belief system, the way you want to dress, how you want to act, as long as it's good, of course, don't let that hinder your success. So actually change your perspective. Again, like I said, it's not what's on your head, it's what's in your head. Let that substance that's in your head not be a limitation, and let it be your inspiration and what kind of drives you forward.
MashaAllah. And Yusuf, drive this home. What would you say is some advice to our brothers and sisters out there? What advice would you give them?
Reach for the stars. If you don't land on the stars, maybe you land on the moon. So if you do have a passion, you do love the sport. I know a lot of you listening inshallah, there's youth listening. If you guys love soccer, basketball, feel free to connect with me. I'll try to help you as much as I can. And inshallah, there's other brothers and sisters in the community as well that can help you. But reach for the stars. I mean, don't let anybody tell you, don't take no for an answer. There will be a lot of haters. When you're in this sport, people say, oh, why are you fasting while you're playing? Why do you have to go off training to go pray? Why do you have a beard? Why do you wear hijab? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Consume all of that and let that translate into good performances and outperform people and represent Islam well through sport. And inshallah, Allah will reward you and you'll reach your goal of being that top level athlete. At the very least, it will shape your character to be a driven, competitive person and will outperform people in your workplace, inshallah, at the very least. So stick with it. You can connect with MAA, myself, and I'll try my best to help you guys. And that's I'll leave it at that.
MashaAllah, man. If you don't reach the stars, if whatever, that's amazing. It's just like I just feel right here. You know what I mean? Like it's awesome, Yusuf. Really, really appreciate you both. And I guess one last thing I will just throw into the mix is that a lot of people spend their health to get wealth, and then they spend their wealth to get back their health. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this health, what you have. I mean, even the fact that you don't have coronavirus is a blessing in and of itself, right? So let us use this gift wisely. Let us use our health wisely. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the most of it. So both of you, thank you so much, Brother Yusuf and Sister Maqbooli, for taking the time today, for sharing your thoughts and insight. And I hope and pray that, that this has been, a wonderful chance and opportunity for you to showcase what you have. And you two are doing amazing work. Just keep going. You two are, for those viewers, I just want you to take a good look at these two. They are Muslim youth. They're Muslim and they're youth and they're in sports. And so it's possible. Just take a look at them. It is possible. That's all you need to know. So thank you both so much for your time. Really appreciate your experience, offering your experiences and those exercises, mashallah. It'd be something worthwhile, I think, for a lot. So with that, this is a great conversation. Thank you both. I want to thank our viewers and the production team for making this all possible. Tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another episode of Canada Today, Youth Edition on Muslim Network TV. Until next time, my name is Muhammad Maxwell Hassan. Stay safe, stay strong, and stay proud to be Muslim. Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.